The injury bug just bit the Rams, and Puka Nacua is going to be out for a few weeks. Now we got to see who's the next man up. Which wide receiver are we going to look at? We're going to look at Tyler Johnson and the rest of the wide receivers to see what we should do with the waiver wire. Do we or do we not need any of these wide receivers? I'm catching a lot of questions about Tyler Johnson. I studied him a lot when he was at Minnesota, so I'm pretty well acquainted with his game. So I'm going to talk about him a lot. I'm going to talk about Demarcus Robinson. I'm going to talk about Jordan Whittington and the offense. But before we dig in, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. You definitely need to, because we're doing these deep dives every day. The top players on the waiver wire, the trending players, the players climbing the depth chart, the players falling down the depth chart. On top of that, we're using these videos to help you set your lineups. Click that button. Stop missing out. So Puka Nacua is out. Looks like 4 weeks, maybe more. Who knows? I'm not a doctor. You're not a doctor. But that's what the news is saying. And everybody's asking about Tyler Johnson, the wide receiver from Minnesota. Got picked up by the Buccaneers in the 5th round. Hung out there. Now he's with the Rams. And now he's starting to see some targets with Puka out. What can we do with Tyler Johnson? Or is there someone else to look at? Back at Minnesota, I just want to talk about this. He was very productive. A good breakout age. A good market share of Minnesota's passing production. A good-looking prospect. Fell in the draft, though. Did not really nail it at the combine. And his game is well-suited for the college level, but not a supreme separator. He's not a guy that's going to take the top off the defense. He's not a guy that's going to wow you with route running, but he's nasty at the catch point. He's nasty boxing out, and he was not productive at the NFL level yet. Had a few moments, had a few games where he made you scratch your head a little bit, but it's been a while. It's been since 2021 since he posted double-digit fantasy results, and last week against the Lions, we see him doing something on the field. 7 targets on 33 routes, catching 5 balls, getting some work in the slot, but an average depth of target 4.4, similar to Puka Nacua, so he's getting used in a similar light there. Air yards of just 31 in this game, a route participation rate of 64.7%, so he's getting the workload. Demarcus Robinson, though, the other wide receiver sitting on the waiver wire, a 92.2% route participation rate. He's running a lot more routes at 47. He's projected to stay in the same role, but that doesn't mean he won't get more targets. Tyler Johnson is going to be the next guy up, so they're going to roll Cup, Robinson, Johnson with Puka out. That being said, Tyler Johnson will get some opportunities. He will get some targets. The matchups are going to matter. How the coverages are rolled, that's going to matter. Cooper Kupp is going to soak up the target share, of course, but on top of that, Demarcus Robinson is going to run about 100% of the routes out there. Tyler Johnson's route participation rate should increase as well, and you're looking at Demarcus Robinson, an older wide receiver, a veteran, but he can be productive with the Rams. We saw that last year, and he went off last year in the back 9 of the season as a replacement asset for the Rams when injuries hit, and he can get the job done. During that time, he was averaging, 15, 16 fantasy points per game with a 20 spot there. That's something we could see. He's the guy everybody's going to off the waiver wire. He's the guy people are spending that fab on. Jordan Whittington, I talked about him a few weeks ago as a guy to look at, a guy to monitor. You got to pay attention to him. He's more like a slot guy that could be getting some opportunity, but pay attention to him if he starts seeing snaps, if he starts seeing targets, because he was looking good in training camp. He was catching a lot of buzz. He was getting some opportunity, but you look at this wide receiver depth chart, everybody's going after Demarcus Robinson. That is the play. Historically, he has been productive. He is going to get snaps. He is going to run a lot of routes. He is going to get targets. Tyler Johnson, the next guy. And this offense can fuel 3 wide receivers. And you look at the schedule here. You got Arizona coming up. They're probably going to try and run it hard at the Cardinals defense, considering they were the worst in the league at allowing rushing yards to running backs. Over 2,000 rushing yards given up to running backs last year. Worst in the league at giving fantasy points up to running backs. That was the Cardinals. Last week wasn't too bad. The Bills tried to run at them. They held up Cook a little bit. But still, teams are going to try to run at them due to what they saw last year. That's in the catalog there for the Cardinals, so it might be a slower paced game. You got San Francisco coming up. You got the Bears. That could be just a broken game script altogether. With the Packers in Week 5, we do not know what the quarterback situation is going to look like. I'm expecting Love to be back, but we're not for sure. Then it's bye week. Week 7, Puka should be back. Puka should be back Week 7. So we got to get through the Niners, the Bears, the Packers, and the Cardinals during this. So when I look at this and I strategize around this, you're not getting the next Puka. Demarcus Robinson is the wide receiver you want, but it's going to be a lot of fab to get him. People are going to pay up for him. You're going to have to compete to get him. But if you don't want to compete to get him, Tyler Johnson, like say you got blind bidding, maybe just throw $1, 1%, 0.5%, and just a little chip out there to see if you can catch him on the free. Maybe you catch him and maybe he starts getting 5, 6, 7 targets a game, especially in some of these broken game scripts. You're hurt at wide receiver, you got to make a move. The wide receiver is obviously Demarcus Robinson, but it really depends on how your waivers work. Maybe you do not want to blow your waiver wire claim because I do not believe the wide receivers this week are worth blowing up your waiver wire claims for or your fab. But if you want to play it cheap, maybe you just put $1 on Tyler Johnson, or you pick up Tyler Johnson after your waivers run through. And if he's not there, he's not there. And you just play what's there off the waiver wire. You don't really need any of these wide receivers. Demarcus Robinson does have a history of hitting here, and he's the next guy up when it comes to targets and production. Tyler Johnson has some upside there. Jordan Whittington, you're just watching. Tyler Johnson, if you want to be a cheapskate and wait for your waivers to pass through, and you really want him on your team. Demarcus Robinson, if you need the production now, if you need someone to fill your wide receiver spot, which you shouldn't, you should have drafted better at wide receiver. You should have been more stacked at wide receiver. We told you to do that. Within the first 5 rounds, you should be feeling very good at wide receiver. And after that, you're just filling the back end of that, and you're good to go. So really, you should not be looking at the waiver wire for wide receivers. But Demarcus Robinson is the guy you're paying up for. Tyler Johnson's the guy you're trying to get free if you're trying to get a lottery ticket off this team. Jordan Whittington, right now, you're just watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.